Hi, welcome to Learn Your Astrology. My name is Nate Spear. I'm an astrologer and mythologist and storyteller. And today we're talking about the week of September 6th to September 13th. This is a big week in a lot of ways for both personal autonomy and freedom and how we are going forward as individuals and in relationships as well. So on the one hand, it's interesting this week because we have this dynamic of there's this flow of power and energy between, on the one hand, ourselves and our own notions of going forward, and as well in relationships and reconnecting in certain cases with people from the past, or just having this flow of dynamics of appreciation between ourselves and loved ones and friends. And so on the one hand, there's that aspect. There's this autonomy and individuality and the relational sense and the interchange of those. That's really what we call the Aries and Libra axis in astrology. Aries, the I, the I-ness, identity, and Libra, the we. So Aries and Libra, I and thou, me and another. So on the one hand, we have that, the interplay of I and thou. And on the other hand, we also at the same time, we're in the middle of Virgo season. So there's this sense that when we look at, we just talked about Aries and Libra axis being I and thou, me and another. There's also right now very prevalent is the Pisces Virgo axis, which involves service and sacrifice, and really, different kinds of sacrifice is really a sacred kind of service that involves emotional and spiritual risk. The word sacrifice comes from the word sacred. So Virgo and Pisces involve sacred service of some form and being attuned to the different patterns that have nourished us throughout our lives. And with an eye for how can I now be in service to these patterns that have also nourished me and helped me be an integrated individual up until this point in my life? Or am I not being of service? In what way am I being of service, in other words? So both of these dynamics, the Aries, Libra, I and thou, and also Pisces, Virgo, sacred service, service to the patterns that have nourished us, both of these have in common, although they reveal themselves in very different kinds of textures and flavors independently of each other. Both of these dynamics call up the kind of nourishing aspect of relationships, and they trigger insights into how to locate our own personal freedom and autonomy in the context of relationships. They also trigger the reverse of that, which is not the shadow side of that not being there, but how relationships figure into a framework in which we're mainly trying to pursue our own autonomy and sense of our life missions as individual human beings. So the relationships that come into focus this week involve being caring for the individuality of a person, caring for the sense of glory and uniqueness and radiant creativity of a person. That's the kind of Aries Libra dynamic. Now, how this in a funny timely way overlaps with the Pisces Virgo dynamic, again, service, sacrifice, sacred service, is that relationships seemingly from the past, or echoes of nourishing relationships from the past, that have provided a kind of supporting structure or held us in a compassionate way through different periods in our lives that we've suffered, will also come into our minds, come into our memories, and figure into our mind, body, and emotional thinking in different kinds of ways. How do I think about this childhood friend or this former mentor or teacher now? How do I express appreciation for this person now? In what context did this person hold me or this place hold me. It's not only about relationships with people in this case, it's also, in this context, involves geography in certain cases, and even psychic, mental geography, mythological geography, such as when we dream and when our psychic geography, the maps of our psyches, goes more down to the underworld rather than in sort of solar day world heroic consciousness. It's kind of like that. It's like this week, the relationships that come into our consciousness come from different geographies. So, the place where I grew up. Oh, the place where I went to a different school. Oh, the place where I traveled. Maybe one time I traveled to a different country, or the grocery store. How did these different places and people, both, that are showing up this week, hold us? How were you held through different containers emotionally in supportive ways throughout your life by the people that are coming up into your mind this week? And if there are people coming up into your mind likewise who seemed to do less than that, who did not validate you, who were not attuned to your needs, who did the opposite, maybe who pushed against your need for visibility or your need for somebody to hold space, maybe ask yourself, without gaslighting yourself, ask, in what way did this person hold space? Or in what way was this person there? Or in what way was this person therefore a negative role model, in the sense that they showed me what not to do and how not to be there for others, and therefore how I could be there for others, in contrast to the way they were for me. In either case, relationships and autonomy, again, the Aries and Libra axis, figure heavily into our thinking. And because of the Pisces-Virgo dynamics, with the sun having reached its midpoint through Virgo season and forming an opposition to Neptune, the sun is that solar hero, that conscious that radiates creativity and light and just the fuel that we burn. And Neptune is the transcendental inspirer, the transcending limitations of the past. Neptune also has this romantic, surrendering, sacrificial kind of feel to it. I would do anything for someone when I'm in the grip of a Neptunian fascination with them, or when I'm in love with them. The magnetism of romantic love, that is also Neptune. So with the sun being halfway through Virgo season, having passed that point and forming an opposition to Neptune, there's a really strong sense of romantic magnetism, and which can carry with it, doesn't have to be romantic love in the sense that we tend to think about it with our Hollywood kinds of expectations of what does romantic mean, right? No, it's more kind of classical romanticism in the form of nostalgia, in the form of memory, in the form of a more grandiose or spiritual sense of what something means. That's kind of the business we're in this week. So the relationships that come into consciousness are not only about the individual, I and thou on a kind of everyday level. They also involve this element of wanting to attune, wanting to be of service, wanting to surrender, wanting to express appreciation to the vast landscapes that these people or this person or this environment provided for our emotions to be held under certain different kinds of circumstances throughout our lives. So I want to mention that dynamic because it's very important, and it's in some cases rare to have an astrological moment that brings these different aspects of relationships into relief, both the kind of individuating aspects of relationships of I and thou, which really involves the formation of our identities, how the other becomes a creative catalyst for me to form and build upon and cultivate my current identity and life path. that's one way of relationships. And in this astrological moment, it's very unique that it overlaps with this other aspect of kind of the opposite of what might be called typically conventionally ego loss or ego death, where we surrender all of our identity markers back into the sea of memory or the sea of transcendence of the need for markers and filters, where memory plays such a pivotal role. That's why sentimentality and nostalgia can creep in to a large extent this week in our thinking about relationships and about landscapes. So relationships, autonomy and other, and the beauty of the other, the service to the other, the service that we've received from the other, the nurturing, the held space, and the transcendence of past limitations about the way that we communicate to these different people and landscapes, and knowing that it's not only people, that it can also be different kinds of geography, places, even bodies of ideas, thoughts that have been given energy in the past that have created this kind of feedback loop or this conversation with us, or again, physical places, locations as well. But it's likely to come up largely because of the Aries and Libra dynamics in the realm of other humans that we've been relating with. As well, Mars is going retrograde this week, so that highlights even more the principle of individual freedom and how am I moving forward? That's the big question of Mars retrograde. How am I moving forward? What is my style of moving forward? Is my style more like running, walking, crawling, biking, skating? Do I let myself stand still and sit still so that the process of moving forward is more of a process of arriving of the forward motion to clarity itself, rather than to get a specific end result of something? It's more that we are arriving to clarity through a journey of stillness, actually. So is that present in your life right now? What is the relationship between anger and rhythm? Anger involves blocked energy, blocked freedom, and a sense of a dislocated rhythm or a disrupted life rhythm. And within Mars stationing retrograde in the middle of Virgo season really involves, Virgo is very involved with the daily rhythm. What is the daily rhythm? How can you give yourself an outlet for anger's expression without harming yourself and those around you? And how can you engage a new rhythm that's inviting you to play with it and ease off of old rhythms? So it's very important to, when you talk about this, think of it as that your foot's been on a certain pedal for months or even for maybe years, and that foot is being strained, and that pedal is like the energy that pedal expresses is kind of depleted a little bit because it's been overstrained and it needs to be eased off of. And now you need to engage the other foot and go on another pedal. So how can you do that? And you might find that situations naturally ask you to engage, to work a different muscle, to think in a different way, or to relate in a different way, or even to physically transport your body in a different way, or that different creative tasks are calling to you than before, or that maybe you need to engage more spontaneity and less preparation, or if you've been really spontaneous and followed every impulse, engage more preparation and less spontaneity in that case. Mars wants to move forward. The Mars in us is the drive to move forward. How can we also engage? We can interrogate, how am I moving forward? Can I try working this muscle to move forward instead of that one? Can I review? Can I reset without regressing? Resetting does not mean regressing. And as we've seen, this week involves so much around relationships and autonomy. Of course, the sex drive figures very heavily into the week as well. So what is the relationship with sex and libido? Mars is the sexual vigor. Where is there opportunity to express sexual creativity or the creativity behind the life force that sexuality represents through, again, other channels. If one channel of and one notion of sex and of sexual expression or of sexual drive has been overstressed or overstrained up until now, is it possible to ease off of that and go to a different and open up other channels, even that don't even seem related to sex on the surface, but through which sexual energy can flow by opening up those channels more and easing off of the other ones that have been strained, letting those rest more. So this may sound a little bit abstract, but it's really all about it's just feeling. If a part of you feels strained, then that's something to listen to and just be see how you can give yourself the space to ease off of that. Or if you still need to pursue that in some form, see if it's possible to engage a different muscle. And you might find that this is something you instinctually do, because Mars is really involved with the instincts. So is the moon, but in a different way. So the instincts of getting needs met, of self-preservation, of overcoming obstacles, those are Mars things. So instincts will kick in, the drive to move forward, also revisiting how we're moving forward and easing off of anything that's been overstrained. So all this and the dialogue with relationships is very important, and showing appreciation to our relationships, knowing that there might be arguments present, but seeing how we can use those arguments as catalysts for reminding ourselves what we appreciate in the other, and how can there be more mutual respect and even adoration or deep respect in this relationship. So that this dynamic moves into the weekend with Mercury opposing Chiron, the wounded healer, and Venus, which is our values and sense of beauty, trining, forming a supportive angle to Chiron. There's this sense that there's a need to communicate our values around how to heal different wounds that we've had in our ways of moving forward and in our relationships, and that the potential for being triggered by others will be there, people who represent identity threats for us. But the potential for healing is also really strongly there if we bring our awareness to it, and unapologetically step into our light of wanting to be seen and not apologize for that desire to be seen. This is a great week. If I were to sum it up, and if you were to remember nothing else from this video, this is a week to cultivate the practice of seeing and being seen in your world. And in certain cases, that means reaching out, reconnecting, making that call that you've been putting off on making, having the uncomfortable conversations. Seeing and being seen is also that. Let people be who they are. Let people be autonomous in their identity and how they express it, while also not trying to please everybody. Each person needs to be honored for their uniqueness. That's what I want to leave you with this week. Autonomy, exploring the autonomy of your moving forward, seeing what things you can ease off of, what else you can engage differently and playfully, and also the deep appreciation of people, places that have catalyzed your own, the cultivation of your own individuality, and that have also held you compassionately through difficult times. Enjoy the rest of the week.